go in here. Okay, looks like we're live on YouTube side. We always were on Kick and Twitch. Okay. Continuing.
And Jay is one of the people you have to thank for that. And yet that community basically removed him from making games for
What
like
we at anyway?
10, 15 years. And it feels criminal
Couple
to me.
hours.
Yeah,
We're
absolutely.
getting there.
So this is a call to action again. People out there support, especially young creators. Support them. They need it. Like you think negativity has no cost, but it does.
Are you
You're
bored,
robbing
Lex?
the world of some of the great creations, and
He's
also
just like
allow
looking down.
creators to suck and to improve. Because that's what the process of creation is like: is to take risks, and take risks, meaning being vulnerable, being cringe. So doing the thing that like the embarrassing failure where you're standing there on in a silly clown outfit on stage dancing and nobody's laughing, and it's comedians go through this all the time when they talk about this all the time when they bomb, right? The act just doesn't work, and you have to go through that, and you have to support the creators through that journey. In order to have great things, we need
That'd
to
be
support those
horrible.
folks. So after shipping WoW, Wrath of the Lich King, again, many consider it to be one of the great expansions for WoW, you stepped down as WoW's game director and switched to developing Titan. This epic, huge game that promised to be the sort of the MMO to end all MMOs. I mean, it's kind of a legendary vision for a game, right? It's gigantic.
You know, that is probably why why we're stuck with the WoW we are now. They're probably afraid to do it again. Like that could have been the next step, but it failed, and yeah, they're probably scared shitless to try again. Yeah. Cuz I always thought that I always said we need a new one, right? Either that or an actual classic plus, you know. Yeah.
With a lot of, like you said, a brilliant team, a team that's now hardened and knows how to do a great game. But it was canceled after 7 years in development. So tell me, what was the vision of the game and what happened?
Sure. So as we were experiencing success with World of Warcraft, there was this concept in the studio that WoW wasn't going to last forever. WoW would be maybe successful for 5 years and eventually kind of age out. And the studio would be real.
It's funny he words it that way because that's exactly what happened. Yeah, WoW might still be alive 21 years later, but what he just said is dead fucking on. That it would succeed for 5 years and age out. Yeah, majority of us, are aging with the game, you know. Yeah, the new players aren't lasting. They're not interested. Nothing's keeping them, and yeah. Yeah.
Real trouble if we didn't have another massively multiplayer online game sort of waiting in the wings. So starting around, I want to say 2006, maybe 2005, um, the talk of starting a team really picked up momentum. And we were working on Burning Crusade. Rob Pardo took the helm to start sort of Titan development. We didn't even really have a team then. And I remember being like embroiled in Burning Crusade and going to Titan meetings. And Rob pulled a group, from kind of across the company, and we started talking about what this next MMO could be and when it would get going. And eventually it started in earnest, like real development around 2007. The first team members joined. And it was a real ambitious project, including like building a new engine from scratch. I think maybe the first team member was a guy named John LaFleur, who was just a stellar game programmer. And the engine, which ultimately failed for Titan, ended up becoming the engine for Overwatch, which is a great success story for him. And the idea behind the game, it was going to take place in future Earth, and the players played as secret agents. And by day, they all had day jobs. And by night, they went off and did cool secret agent stuff. And the secret agent stuff was very first person shooter, but over the top abilities, like you would see in Overwatch, because that's where they came from. And the by day stuff, we were going to let you run businesses. We took a lot of influence from games like Animal Crossing, Harvest Moon, The Sims. We had a brilliant game designer and game director named Matt Brown, who was the creative director on The Sims. He came over. Um, and so we had this vision that there was going to be all this like daytime business house stuff. You could build a house, you could live in a neighborhood. Um, And beyond that, there was also a vision on the technical side, game design and technical side, that unlike World of Warcraft, which the modern day term for is that it's sharded.
Mhm.
So meaning people play on different realms or servers. And a WoW server, I I haven't been on that team in a very long time, but back in the day, you might have 5,000 people on a WoW server before they'd have to spin up another WoW server. The big idea behind Titan is that everybody would play on one server. It
A
was a
mega
one server,
server.
one world game, and the world was
I always
massive.
wished
It was
WoW
gonna
was like
take
that.
place in future Earth, and we were literally building, like, we had what we called Bay City, which was San Francisco. We had, Hollywood, and then we had to build all of California between that, and we also wanted to build, like, Cairo and London. And there's this realization of like, how do we connect all of these? The game had driving in it, like full blown, like GTA style driving. It was such a gargantuan, huge undertaking with a brand new engine, a brand new team, a brand new IP, intellectual property, setting, which we really wrestled over, like, the amount that the IP just, trying to figure out, like, are there aliens or not aliens? Like, all that sounds kinda
You know what's crazy about this story is that it sounds amazing, honestly. It sucks that it was scrapped. And the crazy part of it is that could have been wow. That could have been like you never know. They could have had too many issues and they could have had to scrap WoW. I can't even think of a world where WoW didn't exist. But it goes to show how much work you can have the money, you can have the team, you put all the work in and it still fails, and 7 years that's you know, I know the feeling of something failing after 7 years, and it's not fun. Granted, I never scrapped it, but, um but, you know, hard to accept, it can be.
dumb and fun, but when you're building a game, like you especially world building, you have to have rules. That's what makes world building work is that, like, this exists in this world and
That
this
was just
doesn't,
YouTube.
and,
We
why.
should
It's
be
like
okay.
because someone said
We
so
better
and
be.
just the way it needs to be. But that development started in 2007 kind of as ideation, brainstorming, early work, really got going in late 2007, and then I had to ship Wrath of the Lich King, and it was we had the, like we always did, like, a champagne toast, I still remember it because it was election day. I think it was, like, election day and my birthday and the day Obama got elected. And then I left the WoW team on that day. It was, like, memorable in all those ways, and then I joined the Titan team, and, that game, we went on like, the fast forward part of that is we shut it down in 2013. That was one of the most painful development processes that I've ever been a part of, and, probably deep into 2009, I knew that the game in its current form could never ship and would never exist, and by 2010, like, after numerous times trying to convince the powers that be that, like, this game is not gonna happen, it's in trouble.
Mhm.
I remember going to Mike Morheim in 2010 and, like, you're going to the CEO of, at that time, Blizzard was a big company, and I'm like, "You gotta shut us down. Like, we're just gonna burn money."
What was your intuition about why? So, like, from my understanding, there was a few issues. So, one was such a gigantic world, which, by the way, is a beautiful dream. This kind of universe simulator, because I love every game you mentioned there is great. I empathize with the dream. I would love to play that game, but one of the issues, as I understand, was it was unclear what like the quest flow is. Like, what are you supposed to really do in this game? What's the thing that connects all of the pieces together?
So, it was a multifaceted failure for many reasons. Um, Ultimately, the failure of Titan lies with leadership, team leadership, myself included. Like, there's just no getting around that. And then on top of that, like a lot of games you can point to as being like an engineering failure, like the servers didn't work,
Mhm.
or like an art failure, like no one responded to the look of the game, or design failure, like it's just not fun or it's tuned poorly. We failed on art, engineering, and design. And I'm cautious about calling out art because some of the best art ever made at Blizzard was made for Titan.
Mhm.
My criticism isn't of the art that was created. My criticism is that we never had any art cohesion. So the art looked like it could have come from 10 different games.
Mhm. And we should say it cost $83 million across those years.
I think it would be tough to not have the art look like it came from some other games because, like, there's so many games out there now, and people get their inspiration from games they've played in the past. And yeah, I think it's getting tougher and tougher to get unique. Yeah.
So large team doing a lot of stuff, but not converging towards a game that can actually ship.
Correct. As like a game designer, I use semantics a lot and I like to define my semantics so people know where I'm coming from. Talking about ideas versus vision for a second. Ideas are easy. Ideas, I can have 10 in 10 seconds, let's make a 2D platformer about a mouse, whatever. Like you can co- I want a secret agent by day is, doing all this cool shooting stuff. By night is running a flower shop. Ideas are just infinite. At least on creative teams, you have no shortage of ideas. What I call vision is the ability to not only take a great idea, but shepherd it into existence. And you're doing that through inspiration, first and foremost. If you need a team to make it, you need a team to believe in the vision of the idea. And then there also has to be a technological plan for the idea. There has to be a design plan. There has to be an art style for the plan. There has to be a pragmatic production
As a bonus, if there is a really popular AI game, you can copy it 1-to-1 here in America, as the Supreme Court ruled AI can't be copywritten here. Ugh, that's gonna create a lot of issues. Yeah. Yeah, that's I gotta imagine that's gonna, people are gonna try to change that. Yeah.
reality to the plan. And Titan kind of was like that was the hubris of Blizzard in that era at its height of we were over being hurt about, World of Warcraft. I don't know if people are gonna like it. And
On that topic, they could do so well with that. And how I know is I put it to the test one day, not in game aspect, but I gave Chat GPT a picture of me and Mystic, and I asked it to turn it into a video. I wanted to see how close it would be. And it looked like videos I had recorded that I put on the vlog channel. Yeah, I'll say straight out, no AI videos are on that channel. I was just testing. I was just testing to see like how close it gets, and it is scary fucking close. Yeah. Like I looked like me in a video doing something I've never done before. I've never done that video, but I looked like me, and Mystic looked like her, meowing, and like it was, honest to God, so effing scary when I saw the results. And I was like, I could upload this and people would think that's me and Mystic. Like I didn't, but maybe one of these days I'll make it the video that I choose to do, but I'll have like the real one of us on the other side of the video. But it was crazy scary. So I can only imagine if I just winged that in the matter of 5 minutes, what people could do with a fucking game. Because no joke, I might have even taken maybe 3 minutes to do it. It was no more than five. Yeah. And that was just I've always hated AI, honestly. Yeah, a lot of people love AI for what you can do, but I am, I don't know, just call me the doomer, okay? I am a person that thinks of the bad before I think of the good. And I see AI fucking over people. People having identity theft because of AI, people losing channels because an AI pretended to be them. I see the worst of the worst situations with AI, whereas everyone else sees the best, sees what it can eventually do. But I see bad. Yeah, and I always have. Yeah.
we were now in the era of like, we made World of Warcraft, we can do no wrong. This next thing is going to be the best ever. And there was also a lot of what I call anticipatory hiring,
Mhm.
or like there's opportunity hiring and then there's also anticipatory hiring. I have the exact opposite hiring philosophy. I won't hire anybody on any team
Wait a
until like
sec. Wait a sec. If that is allowed, why doesn't someone just redo WoW? Like, seriously. What if 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 Blizzard couldn't even come after that person, then why do we not have an AI World of Warcraft? What the fuck?
We're feeling like we gotta work overtime, or like we might not ship if we don't get, somebody else in here. And Titan kinda had that hubris of like, well, we're gonna build a really big world. We don't know the story of the world yet. We don't really have it mapped out what it should be like. We don't have the art style really defined. We don't know technically how we're gonna make the art or what the constraints of it are, but we know we're gonna build a really big world. So let's just start hiring environmental artists. And like in 1 year, we would hire like 70 environmental artists from all over the world. We're getting visas and like the top tier talent because at the height of World of Warcraft, and nobody knew the team that they were coming on. It was Blizzard's next MMO, top secret. And their first day at work, like some, poor guy from Belgium just shows up and he's at his first day at work and he's like, "Oh, are we making, World of StarCraft? Is that?" And they're like, "No, dude, let me show you it." And he's like, "What is this
World
game?"
of StarCraft.
We were in that world, and we hired way too many people. The right way to incubate a video game is you have the smallest group possible, and you try to get the idea across with whatever technology you can get your hands on, using other engines, using art
Mm,
from whatever. You prove out that idea. And once you know what you're doing, then you expand the team.
mhm.
The cliche of idle hands is the devil's work or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
You have these like brilliant team, huge, and we don't have a roadmap.
They did say they wanted to make a StarCraft MMO at one point. Yeah, I believe that was Titan. In a sense. Yeah. I think StarCraft wouldn't be a horrible one, but it would be too much like EVE Online, right? Wouldn't it be similar to that? And like, yeah, you kind of I guess it there's MMO fan and then there's spacey MMO fan, you know? Yeah. Yeah. But I guess it's how World of Warcraft came in, you know? World of Warcraft was based off of, you know, well, it was based off its Warcraft series, you know, and completely well, I guess that's the difference. Yeah. Yeah, StarCraft, they'd have to do something that like makes it completely different, but the same at the same time. Now then that's what they did with World of Warcraft, but you know, I don't know, it would still be spacey and yeah, I don't know. I don't know. But that's why I think Titan was it. You know, that was the StarCraft MMO, I believe, because yeah, they probably wanted to do it like WoW, where it has kind of a different aspect than the past game, but it's MMO, and yeah. But I just, I'm just sad over the 7 years, right? Well, I can imagine. I've done it, but I've done it in multiple aspects in my life where you spend 7 years, you know, doing something that you love and then, you know, yeah.
App for what we're making or how we're gonna make it.
But I think it was a right choice to scrap it because if you really thought it was going nowhere, yeah, no point in wasting the money, like yeah. It's like when I'm buying off the WoW store, I want to make sure it's going to a game that will exist. Yeah. So, because that's how they funded it, right? Like 100%. Yeah. I
And
joke,
now
but I'm
you're having to
serious.
deal with all these people, like, they're coming into your office, you're trying to figure out what is the quest flow?
Although
How do I design the
although that wouldn't have been actually because they started in Wrath. The store didn't exist yet. But if they had started after WoD, that would have been the case.
quest system for Titan? How can we prototype it? And we're like, "Oh, this prop artist over here is running out of stuff to do. What props should he make? Should he work on Chinatown or the Hollywood set?" And you're just making up busy work. The engine didn't work. When we would run playtests on Titan, we would have to tell the team, "Stop checking in," because it slows us down. We had this really great, technical artist, guy named Dylan Jones, and he was on Titan with us, and I remember in, like, the last days, we asked him because he was a very active user, Titan, editor was called Titan Edit or TED, which is to this day, TED is the proprietary tool for Overwatch since Overwatch came from the Titan engine,
Mhm.
which was Tank. And we said to Dylan, I want you to log your uptime in the editor in TED. And in a 40-hour week, he was only able to work for 20 hours. And you can imagine you're building a team of the best in like the best in the industry, and they can't work. So not only are you just burning cash faster than anybody on the planet, it's also like imagine having fighter pilots, but we don't let them fly.
Yeah.
Like the creative frustration and the way that that manifested itself and uh how demoralized the team got. It was a disaster.
And so many elements of that were done completely differently for Overwatch, which turned out to be this incredibly masterful execution on a short time scale with a small team with a clear vision. I read that sort of if you were to compare Overwatch and Titan, so the defining characteristic for the Titan team that said yes to everything, and the Overwatch team said no to everything, meaning focus, like deep, deep focus on the execution of a very clear vision. And maybe that's the process of designing games, like you said, is you know on a team that's full of incredible ideas
Man,
because
is
it's
that
creative
his
minds,
keyboard?
it's
It's so
constantly saying no.
curvy.
It's a really painful process, but perhaps it is the responsibility
I
of
used to
leadership
have
to
kind
just
of
keep
a
saying
curvy
no,
keyboard, but only at
which
the ends,
sucks.
and it drove me up the
I guess it
wall.
sucks to be a leader on
Yeah.
a team in that sense because you're constantly
I
saying
like
no.
flat.
The being a creative leader,
Flat
you're in
surface.
two modes. You're pushing or you're pulling. And whatever mode you're in is the exact opposite of the team.
Hmm.
When they're not thinking outside the box enough or like elevating the vision enough, that's when you're pushing them. Like, come on, guys, don't worry about the schedule. We got, capture hearts and minds, inspire people. And when they're going a little crazy and endless source of great ideas and really fun development, that's when you got to pull and say, guys, we need to ship this. The best feature we can add for the player is shipping. That was a common phrase that we had.
So when Titan was canceled, I mean that must have been a gigantic heartbreak for everybody. And there was this moment when the plan was for the Titan team to be disbanded and moved elsewhere, but you fought for keeping some part of the Titan team, the core of the team together. And Mike Morheim gave you 6 weeks to come up with a pitch for a new game. And you've talked about this process. And you've mentioned that there are three possible ideas, directions you're thinking about: a StarCraft MMO, maybe an MMO in a new IP called Crossworlds, and then the third idea was Overwatch. Can you take me through those 6 weeks?
Yeah, the 6 weeks, it's
Before he says what he's gonna say, um, I think they made a good decision. I would have loved, some MMO, but I was still heavily hooked to World of Warcraft back then. When Overwatch came out, I was still loving WoW. I have, at that time I had one expansion that was but nothing really. I didn't hate anything with WoW yet at that point. And when Overwatch came out, I remember my friend Brody that, very infrequently comes into the chat, but still once in a while. Him and I played the beta. Well, it was the alpha and then it was the beta. And there's actually some videos on the channel of us playing that. I think that was the beginning of when I started doing content. It was kind of around that time. Well, not the super beginning, but well into it, I guess. And those were fun times. I really liked Overwatch. Yeah, I was pretty hooked to Overwatch for quite some time. Yeah.
It was supposed to be the greatest time ever if you think about it, because you're a game developer at Blizzard and you get to come up with a new idea.
Mhm.
So that sounds awesome. Like, to everybody at Blizzard, to all game developers, it sounds great. But we were probably the most demoralized we'd ever been in our careers. At least I was. I didn't know if I was going to be fired. I didn't know if that was the end of my career at that point. And so it was like a really serious kind of dire.
Do you think it would have been if Microsoft had acquired them back then? That might have been the deciding factor right there.
Environment that this was happening in. And we were given two criteria that we had to hit for these pitches. The first one was that we had to ship within 2 years. And that is a very ambitious time frame
Yeah,
for any
crazy.
game.
That's crazy.
But for a Blizzard game, it's kind of insane.
Yeah.
Damn,
And
his
then the
voice sounded
second
so loud, I
okay, the
thought
the second is
another,
even more
page was running in the
ambitious and
back.
crazy, was whatever we made, whatever we pitched had to have the potential to have World of Warcraft like revenue.
Yeah. Right.
And to date, at that point, there was one game that had World of Warcraft like revenue, which was World of Warcraft. So immediately I just threw out the revenue thing because it's all fucking monopoly money to me.
Yeah.
Like, this game money it's insane, and I just don't think about it. That's someone else's problem. But uh, I did want to be as realistic as I could about the schedule part of it. So most of our team, the Titan team, was 140 some people. Most of that team got moved to go work on Here's the Storm, the D3 expansion, World of Warcraft, Hearthstone. So immediately, large number of the team was gone. Then we had a bunch of, like, what we called temp loans,
Mhm.
people that someday were going to come back to us, but we loaned off for like 6-month tour of duty. And then there was a very small team. There was a group of engineers that was mothballing Titan. So it exists somewhere at Blizzard at that point. And they were also deconstructing the engine because they knew it didn't work anymore. And to make a new game, it had to be way reconsidered to sort of what it is today. And then there was a very small creative group that was supposed to come up with these three pitches and given 6 weeks. And we just sort of arbitrarily decided, like, let's spend 2 weeks on each pitch. The ground rules that I sort of led with is you have to be all in for the 2 weeks on the pitch. So if pitch one was a StarCraft MMO, and we have to live and breathe and want it more than anything. And I kind of warned everybody, I said, at the end of this 2 weeks, you're going to think this is the only game idea and you're not going to be invested in the next, but we're going to throw it out as soon as we finish it and do the next one. And the StarCraft MMO, I actually really loved that pitch. It was called StarCraft Frontiers. And the concept was, like, less of you're
It's a
playing
good
like
name.
Space Marine, like, it was less armies. StarCraft, the RTS, is always about the three races and the giant
Mhm.
armies. And kind of what made WoW WoW and separate from the Warcraft RTS series was that instead of being like a footman in the army in World of Warcraft, you were like a lone adventurer, you know, make your mark on the world. So we had this idea, it was this old Chris Metzen drawing of a space prospector, and I love that idea that like somewhere out in like where all the giant StarCraft battles were happening, thousands of Zerg and Protoss and Terran, there's like this like lone prospector on some planet, like going through like a mysterious dungeon,
Mhm.
looking for minerals but finding monsters. Like it was that kind of spirit of
That's awesome.
more on the ground level.
I didn't even think about that because my intuition with a StarCraft MMO would be the soldier as part of the army, right? The prospector. That's such a beautiful vision. Yeah.
Yeah,
Looking for the resources and on the way finding the monsters.
you wanna be on the like, what's it like on the ground floor? And I don't wanna be a minion in a giant army. I wanna be Indiana Jones in space, you know?
Nice.
Um, so then there was this Metzen picture of the prospector, and then 2 of the most amazing artists, Arnold Sang and Peter Lee. Arnold's the great character artist. Peter Lee's the great environment artist. They did this concept art for Frontiers that was Metzen's space prospector. He's smoking a cigar and he's got his foot on a Hydralisk skull.
Nice.
And then there's like a med vac in the background and they're on this like big alien planet. And like that picture, you just wanted to like, here's my money, I'll pre-order now. Like sign me up for that game. Um, that picture ended up being McCree from Overwatch. We redid it.
Nice.
But yeah, that was where McCree actually came from. So that was the StarCraft Frontiers idea. We kind of we went all in on the design. We had a world design, we had class design, like how the classes would work, what progression might look like, and also have to think when you're trying to design an MMO, like what could expansions and live content be like. And we put together a really good pitch. We all knew there's no way you can make this game. Like this, even though it was more focused than Titan, it's 5 years on Blizzard's best day with nothing going wrong. In perfect scenario,
Mhm,
5 years to make that game. Probably with, 150 to 200 people.
mhm.
Like these 40 people are not making that game in 2 years. So as much as like again, that was an idea, not a vision, because it lacked the path to reality, there.
'Cause that's a legit large scale MMO in a world that you haven't quite developed in the way that an MMO needs. It was really crafted for the real-time strategy formulation of StarCraft, and it's in space,
Yeah,
it would take, I mean, it would be incredible, but it would be, 5 year and realistically even more.
like an endless thing that you'd spin on that team. You're making the StarCraft game. How do you get from planet to planet? Is it a
Yeah.
cutscene? No one's gonna want a cutscene, but we should probably make it a cutscene because that's easy. But well, we gotta have space flight. That you're adding like 3 years just by saying we gotta have space flight.
You are,
And then
yeah.
how do you make a space game without space flight? We've
Right.
all played them. We know those games. So,
So are you essentially, when you're brainstorming like that, and by the way, it's such an incredible thing that for 2 weeks you're just really falling in love with the game altogether and trying to figure out if it's actually possible. So if you're developing that, are you just constantly trying to say, like, what is the simplest possible thing we could do that's a complete world? Like, are you constantly trying to simplify, or are you
Yeah.
allowing yourself to go big?
so when you're brainstorming and you're with the team and you're the creative leader, it's guys, what's fucking amazing? What's
Hmm.
big? What do players need? There's a Blizzard design value called what is the fantasy?
Hmm.
What is the fantasy? You want to be in space. You want to be in the StarCraft universe. And then your job as the game director, and if you have a great creative director, art director, tech director, the director should be scoping it back into reality. The mistake I see on a lot of game teams is scope becomes a production problem. you give it to the project managers or the executives or the producers to say, no, there's not enough time, or you guys should hire more. Because,
Right.
like, what what do executives, what do those types have at their disposal? They can hit you with meetings in Outlook and tell you that you can hire more people. That's not really how you get the game made.
That's why they get paid the big bucks.
The scoping, your best case scenario is when your tech director, art director, and game director are doing the scoping.
Mhm.
Because then you know, like, this part we got to spend big bucks on. There's no getting around it. This part we can cheat. If you have a giant team and one guy's job is just to make props, crates and chairs, the guy's going to make that's a triple A awesome developer who's going to put his heart and soul into it. If you let him, he'll take 6 weeks to make a crate.
Mhm.
You have to have that moment where you're like, I kind of need 200 crates. So just spend like a couple hours on that one. And that's a hard thing to say to somebody.
You're doing this kind of scope carving while also talking about what is the fantasy. So
Yeah.
there's a tension there that you're constantly dancing with. So you're allowing yourself to think big, but then scoping it down and doing that what on a scale of days in this case? Like,
Yeah. We had 2 weeks. So, and I don't think I was working on weekends, but we weren't getting the group together. So it's, like 10 working days.
and then you like shut it off and go to idea number two.
Yeah. Idea number 2 was Crossworlds. That was a Metzen vision for a universe, and, like, I'm I'm glad Metzen's back at Blizzard, and I hope they make this game someday. Um, the way Chris described it was, there's a planet on the edge of the universe that's like the Mos Eisley spaceport with all these, freakish aliens and people from all walks of life. And it's kind
Nice.
of seedy and criminal.
Mm-hmm.
And there's traders and smugglers and diplomats. But this one planet is sort of the planet that they've agreed to like meet on. And this is
So
like the
kinda like that
neutral
Star Wars game,
place. And then the game was going to take place
that
on that
last one.
planet. So,
This is awesome.
yeah, so that was more of like a world IP driven one that was really inspired by Chris.
And that allows you to play with different characters, different. I like that. I like that idea a lot because it's the meeting place of different worlds, and then you can allow your imagination to drive what the worlds from which they came from are like. So you don't have to design those
No,
worlds.
you don't have to design them, but then they're yours. Like if the players really are reacting to like the green people
Hmm.
planet or whatever, and someday you're like, hey, what expansion should we make? I don't know,
Yeah,
green people
green
planet.
people. Yeah,
Like, let's do it.
I like
So
it.
so it was actually that it was Crossworlds. We were working on Crossworlds, and like the StarCraft Frontiers, for Frontiers, we were having the class meetings, how class progression worked, like the game designery stuff. And on Crossworlds, we were having a class meeting of like i- a big decision in like RPG type games is always, are you doing like skill based or class based?
Hmm.
And it's usually some combination of those. But class based, you're like choosing, I'm going to be a warrior, therefore I use sword and shield and I do these things. Where more of a skill base is everybody's kind of an avatar, and then the skills that you pick define. So I might take that I know how to use swords. So you're kind of making those decisions. And with all things game design, there's no right or wrong. It's all trade-offs. So the trade-off decision we were making is like, oh, I think we want to be class-based with this crossworld thing, and we were in a design meeting, and one of my favorite designers of all time is a guy named Jeff Goodman. He was one of the original WoW encounter designer. He designed like Onyxia and all the big raid bosses. Like if someone has a favorite raid boss, Jeff probably designed it. And he just kind of off the cuff said in this meeting, he said, I wish instead of making like 6 classes, I wish we could make 50 classes. And I wish instead of having like, 100 abilities on the classes, the the 50 classes all just had like one or two things that was really interesting about them. And then the class meeting ended, like we designed our 6 classes in that meeting. And then the meeting ended and I was back at my desk and it just stuck with me what Jeff had said about the way he wished he could design the classes. And then I also we had this directory of all the amazing Titan art.
Mhm.
And I started pulling up Arnold Sang's characters. Arnold's vision and his art is second to none. And I started taking some of the old Titan characters that we had designed. We had a class called the Jumper, and the Jumper could like teleport forward and rewind time and come back. And the Jumper used dual wield pistols, which was at the time designed after my dual G18s from Modern Warfare 2 was my favorite loadout.
Uh-huh.
I was just cribbing Infinity Ward. That's where Tracer's guns came from.
Mhm.
And we had all these like different guns, like some that bloomed and some that, had this like really crazy recoil. And we had other types of guns. And I took every version of like the Titan jumper and I just distilled it into what I thought was the best version of the jumper, which was, the dual wield pistols, the blink, the recall, and time bomb. And then I took Arnold Sang art and I went, to Arnold and I'm like, what if this wasn't like a class? Who is this as a person, not a class? And Arnold, oh, what if she's British and her name's Tracer? And like, that was the origin of Overwatch. And some of the pragmatic part of that was I knew that Jeff Goodman was going to be on this team. And I knew that Arnold Sang was going to be on this team. And it's a play to your strengths moment. Like, what could we make in 2 years with the talent we have? And what is realistic? Like, what could we realistically make?
Mhm.
And so then I just sat there and I sort of I went through a bunch of Titan classes. With a guy named the Gunjack who became Reaper. We had actually
Reaper
the
was my
Ranger got
main.
split out and became 76
Reaper and
and
Mercy.
became Bastion of all things.
You're describing the game of Overwatch
I
where
loved
exactly
Junkrat
that
though.
vision
Junkrat
from
was
that
good.
meeting came
Yes.
to life for you, as opposed to having a small number of classes with a large number of skills. You have a large number of heroes with each their distinct look, distinct set of skills.
Yeah, and the personality was a big part of it, like capturing this isn't some generic the jumper, it's this person, Lena Oxton,
Mhm.
and she has a life and we're gonna, you know, make you interested in her.
Yeah, there's like a deep backstory. And that's also what's interesting about Overwatch is that backstory is not like revealed in a direct way. It's like seep.
I used to upload those stories, but then I guess I kind of felt guilty about uploading a story and not being part of the video, not making it my own, so I dropped it. But the first few new Overwatch characters I had uploaded. Yeah. But but yeah, I very much that's why when we watch cinematics now, like we do it on stream, I'm on a camera. Yeah. Yeah, if I'm not on a camera and I'm not talking over it, I feel like I just ripped it. Yeah, and I don't like that feeling. So, yeah.
In indirectly throughout the game. So the backstory is implied
Yeah.
almost, and it's told not
But
directly.
those
So there's a
stories
lot of
were
ideas
really
like this,
good.
and
I
so
liked them.
this is the thing that the team converged to.
Yeah. Well, and it was funny because
Overwatch
like we're having these
shorts.
cross-world, like people are, writing design docs and doing concept art for cross-world, and we'd have some brainstorm meetings every day. And I put together, it was a 7-page deck, Overwatch deck. And it was called Monetized Shooter at the time.
Yeah.
And it just said monetized shooter. And then the first slide was League of Legends plus Team Fortress 2 logos.
Yeah.
And then I had like 6 heroes, like sloppily designed. And as everybody was working on Crossworlds, um, there were 2, co-leaders of that team 4. There was, Chris Metzen was there and Ray Gresco. And I remember Ray coming over. Ray is like a phenomenal game developer of all time. He like wrote the Dark Forces engine, was the production director on Diablo 3. He and I killed Titan. And then he's at my desk looking over my shoulder and he's like, "Well, what are you working on? Is this the Crossworlds pitch?" And I'm like, "No, this is like another idea that I'm just working on the side." And I show him the 7 slides and he just looks at me and he says, "Go show Metzen this. This is what we should make instead." And then I went and I showed Metzen like, this is just an idea." And then Metzen was like, "Yes." Like, "This is what we should make."
Yeah.
And I showed Arnold and it was Arnold's art. And then Ray tells me, he's like, because we would every morning we get the team together because we were in this like dire straits and we're midway through at that point. And Ray and a producer named Matt Hawley said, "Tomorrow morning at the meeting, you're going to pitch this monetized shooter idea." It was called monetized shooter because originally when I pitched it, it was free to play and you had to buy the heroes, which is fucking terrible. But at the time, I actually thought that was a good idea.
Mhm.
And I'm walking down the hall with Matt Hawley to go like pitch this to this group. We're supposed to be working on Crossworlds, and they're like, "You got to pitch this idea to them." And Matt Hawley stops me in the hall and says, "You, Jeff, you cannot go into that meeting. I refuse to put up a deck in front of the team where the first slide says monetized shooter.
Mhm.
They'll hate that. And that's not the spirit of who we are
Mhm.
as, creative develop." And I'm like, "Yeah, you're right." Like, "Well, no one was supposed to see this deck anyway. You guys
Mhm.
were all looking over my shoulder." And he's like, You need to put a name on it."
Mhm.
I'm like, "It's Overwatch." Like right on the spot, I said the name was Overwatch. And where that had come from was when we were working on Titan, I was really angry about this. We did this fake, I did not do this. Another leader on the team did this, of this fake, like, we're going to put up whiteboards and everyone gets to vote for their favorite name for Titan.
Mhm.
But the person who did it already had a name in mind for the
Mhm.
game
Mhm.
and just kept pushing towards that name.
Yeah.
And the thing that got the most votes was Overwatch. Overwatch in Titan was like a police group, essentially. But somebody had written Overwatch on that board and it got the most votes. So I basically named the game Overwatch to like high five my team and
Yeah.
kind of middle finger,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
don't act like it's a democracy when it's not,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. So it's a
So,
middle finger.
yeah.
So Overwatch, and then the rest is history. So what in that slide deck is that in that slide deck did you already have a kind of crawl, walk, run idea of the way this would be developed?
So my deck was terrible. People actually, there's a thing called a Jeff deck, which is it's always gray with black writing and then the default like PowerPoint blue shapes because I just don't bother making it look good.
Yeah.
Besides dragging Arnold Sang's art, desecrating it into my deck. Um, we had this amazing game designer on the Overwatch team, a guy named Jeremy Craig, who's now actually game directing game over at Bonfire. Um, Jeremy, not only was he a great game designer, but he had the ability to sell things better than anybody else visually. So Jeremy took my shitty deck, and then we had lots more like creative brainstorms, and we thought through the game of Overwatch a lot more. And then he made this gorgeous pitch deck that we pitched. We first had to go through the Blizzard production and game directors for them to approve it and give it their thumbs up. Then we had to go through the Blizzard executives. Then we had to go through Activision.
Mhm.
Um, and in that deck, because we had to speak to schedule, we had to speak to two things that were tough to speak to. One, we had to speak to schedule, and we came up with this concept of crawl, walk, run. We had identified the reason Titan failed is we just tried to run. We tried to come up with the next World of Warcraft. But if you think about World of Warcraft, it had Warcraft 1, 2, and 3 to build upon to even get to the point where people gave a shit enough about that world to want to live in the world of Warcraft. So the idea was that instead of trying to cut right to World of Warcraft, let's try to honor Warcraft 1 essentially. So this first game is just to establish that there's a universe you might give a shit about.
Mhm.
We also knew that the time frame we were given of 2 years, there was no way to create a compelling PvE experience. So we just kind of randomly put dates in a slide of crawl, walk, run, thinking it was aspirational, and really we were just trying to save ourselves. Like, don't cancel us. You know, this team can make something great. The other part that we had to talk to too was like a mobile strategy. Like at that time, it was like everything has to be also on mobile, which I think is the dumbest thing ever.
Agreed.
And
Yeah.
so literally what we did is this was Jeremy's brilliant part. We had a picture with all the boxes, and then one of them is like a tablet with just a fucking Photoshop of, Arnold's art on it. And we're
Yeah.
like, and also it'll be
Mobile.
on mobile.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
But I think this crawl, walk, run idea is really nice. So that the initial idea is you would have basically a shooter with all these different characters, all these heroes, and then the walk would be the PvE version of that co-op. And then if people really fall in love with the world, then you build a big MMO around it. Quick pause for a bathroom break. Quick 30-second thank you to our sponsors. Check them out in the description. It really is
I
the best
could
way to
maybe
support this
use a
podcast.
bathroom break,
Go to
but it's
lexfriedman.com/sponsors. We got Finn
let me
for
see.
customer service
What
AI
where we
agents,
sitting at?
Blitzy for
And how
code
bad do I
generation
gotta
in
pee?
large code bases, BetterHelp for mental
I
health,
can hold it for a
Shopify
bit.
for selling stuff online, CodeRabbit for AI-powered code review, and Perplexity for curiosity-driven knowledge exploration. Choose wisely, my friends. And
Okay,
now,
speaking of break
back to my
time,
conversation with Jeff
hold on.
Kaplan. And we should
Okay. Okay, speaking of break time or break time for bed. Good night and thanks for all the fish. Thanks for hanging out and have a good sleep and yeah. Yeah, I will be going shortly. Well, it depends what you call shortly, but there's an hour. There's about an hour left. So in an hour I will go too. And yeah. So a little over what I predicted. I figured we'd be done around 3, but I do pause a good chunk and you know, I try my best to estimate it properly, but you don't know. You don't know how many times you're gonna pause. People chat and yeah, but we'll be okay. We'll be okay. Anyway, have a great night and we'll catch you tomorrow.
also say that there's
Sweet
a whole
dreams.
world that was built around Overwatch, and one of the ideas was so Warcraft is a very particular kind of world, StarCraft is a particular kind of world, Diablo is a particular kind of world, and you wanted to bring Overwatch to Earth and make it
This was a
positive.
buzzing
You give this talk
simulator.
where there was a lot of respect paid to the sort of dark,
That's
gritty,
why
post-apocalyptic
that's why it took me like a week to get this stream to go, because it had to be a day where it had to be a day where I don't have to be at work super, super early. And it also had to be a day where I wasn't starting late. And yeah, I had to account for this amount of time. Yeah, the minute I saw it was a 5-hour interview, I'm like, oh my God. Like, no one beats me. And this includes Asman. No one fucking beats me when it comes to pausing and extending videos. Like, I am the fucking queen in extending fucking videos. So I knew damn straight, if it was a 5-hour, we were here for probably 8. Yeah. And how much has it been? It's been 6:45. 6 hours 45 minutes. So it'll be about 8, because the good part of you going to bed is I won't pause as much, but then sometimes it don't matter. Sometimes I'll just pause and say something anyway, because, you know, for the VOD viewers, right? But you get what I'm saying. The less people, the less pauses. I don't know, you have only been streaming for a bit of, yeah, Twitch probably restarted as a separate stream. Yeah, I didn't check to see if it had continued. But yeah. Yeah.
games on Earth. Also give a lot of respect to the ultra-realistic first-person shooter games like Call of Duty. And you wanted to create something more that paints a vision of a
2
near-term,
years, 4
hopeful
months, 10
future,
days, 7 hours.
and fun
Nice.
and more
That's how
sort of
long Dreckel's been
surreal
following
versus like ultra
the Twitch
real.
channel.
So it's interesting to talk through
I don't think you can
how
do
a
that with the
world
Kick
comes to
channel,
life, how you think
and
about
definitely
that
not
world,
with
how you
YouTube.
create the tone of the game,
But
how you think, how you craft.
the thing with YouTube, if you guys ever wanted to like show me how long you've subbed, it's public subs. That's how I know. If you share subscriptions on YouTube publicly and you don't put it in private mode, then I know when you comment on videos, I see it. Yeah. Aside from that, you'll have to be a member if you want to show off in a month or a year. Yeah, that's the only other way, is by that badge. Yeah, because I don't think you can like do exclamation follow or something. Yeah, I don't think it has that function.
In this vision, not just like different characters like Tracer and so on, like what the personalities, but like bringing the world to life in which they will be. What was that process like?
The process was a blast, and like the goal was that bright, hopeful future. And the other phrase we used all the time on the team was a future worth fighting for.
Hmm.
If there's going to
Yes.
be all this fighting, like it kind of has to be worth it for something. Picking the locations in the world was the funnest thing. There's just a group of us who would sit around and like, where do you want to go? Santorini looks amazing. And you're looking at pictures and like, let's make that place. In a video game, people are going to spend hours
I've
and
been bumped
hours in
off
a
that
location.
a few times.
Resist the urge to do the common, I call them the cargo
Pisses me off
container
every time.
mazes that you see in every game. And I know why they exist. They're easy to make, but we kind of wanted Overwatch to be this world tour of great places that you'd want to go to.
Hmm.
Or in the case of like Oasis, it's like, okay, maybe Iraq back when we were making this game wasn't the top of people's list, but what is the bright, hopeful version of what that could look like? So we just really tried to sell this idea of these aspirational locations One, just to get people thinking about different places on planet Earth and how awesome they all are, but also from like a pure game design standpoint, you're going to spend a lot of time in the environment, so the environment should be pleasing and not oppressive.
Can you go through some of the heroes that you ended up putting in the game? Maybe a good way to do it is which are your favorites, and what's from the best of your knowledge of the internet
So many
favorites.
of them are so
My
good.
my, my favorite, I have a couple favorite heroes. Obviously Tracer,
She's the OG.
the OG, the
Yeah.
cornerstone, we put her on the front of the
Yeah, I was
box.
gonna say she was the
She was
selling
that
character.
moment of we should just take
Plus
the
plus there was something about her in the beta. Was it that she was they all were playable? There was something, I think you got something for Tracer for pre-purchasing Overwatch. I very vaguely remember that. It was like 10 years ago, so I don't totally remember what it was. But but yeah, so you knew right there and then she was, Actually no, wasn't it Widow? It was Widowmaker. Yeah, you got Widowmaker's skin. Never mind. It wasn't Tracer, it was Widowmaker. You got her skin. Yeah. So never mind.
best of the
She was
best,
just the
and
cover.
we know this gameplay is good and solid, and it's so simple. Like, the mechanics are very easy to explain to somebody. It's very easy to pick up. The first time anybody hits recall for the first time, and they try to wrap their mind around, like, "Wait, does that mean if I," and they're mapping out the possibilities.
And by the way, we should say that it's a PvP game with 6 versus 6 at first, and where there's three distinct roles that people take on those on a team, and those roles at first, I guess, were not required. Like you can reallocate those roles as you wanted, and then
Mhm.
to match.
Yes, because I remember playing Overwatch and we would all be like Mercy. Yeah, and then they changed it. Yeah, where it had to be a different one. Yeah.
Maximize the fun. You add a little bit of structure. You enforce two per role, and the role being tank, support, and damage.
Yeah.
So that, and then there's all the kinds of heroes that are associated with the different roles, and people pick, and there's lore, and some people are probably like hardcore just one particular hero, and so there's a lot of personality and story and community that builds around each of the heroes, and but at the end of the day, it is just a fun shooter.
Yeah, our goal was to pay homage to the shooters before us that we loved. There's no way you can talk about Overwatch without talking about Team Fortress 2.
Hmm.
Team Fortress started as a Quake mod, which was brilliant, and I played tons of. Then there was Team Fortress Classic that came out with Half-Life 1.
Hmm.
And then Team Fortress 2, I think everything about it blew everybody away when it came out in 2007. And there's obviously just huge influence there. But the shooter mechanics of Overwatch are they harken back to what people call the arcade or arena shooter genre, which pains me because I never back in the day I didn't think of Quake as a arcade shooter. It was it's
Right?
almost an insulting way of saying it, but just the fast movement, really epic over the top weapons. You have a low time to kill, or TTK that players call it, meaning you're very survivable. You can take a few hits, where in a game like Call of Duty or Counter-Strike, if you get shot in the head, you're just dead right away.
Yeah.
So it was supposed to be this explosive, larger than life, fun arcadey shooter,
Hmm.
with a lot of teamwork involved.
And so you said Tracer up there. She's the OG. Who else?
McCree. McCree is another, like, I'm somebody who's attracted to the simplicity in design, and I did not design McCree's six shooter.
Yeah, it
The
was
way
so
that
silly
gun
when they
feels
changed the
is
name, like,
phenomenal. And to capture the spirit of that, we had a designer named Mike Heiberg designed the high noon ultimate, and then just all the care and love the team put in. Like when he does the ultimate, we roll a tumbleweed across the screen like every time. It's a very simple hero, but the simplicity is what I like best in design. I'm not a fan of when somebody starts explaining, in any of these games, whether they're MOBAs or hero shooters, and they start like, this guy throws orbs and he throws 3 orbs and then he runs out of his orb bank and then he can call the orbs back or he can cash the orbs. And I'm just, my head is spinning and I'm like, just give me a fucking good gun,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I'm done.
Simplicity is everything.
Yeah.
What about Reinhardt, the tank?
Reinhardt was actually my main, so
Reinhardt
I
is
played the
fun.
most of
Yeah.
Reinhardt. That was another amazing Jeff Goodman design of this guy who just has a shield. As soon as you give somebody a shield, they know what to do. They go into protector mode. The shield was designed to shoot through. The shield has since been copied by like every hero shooter since, and even non-hero shooters. And then he just has a giant rocket hammer and he does a charge ability. It's really interesting where the charge ability came from. I was playing a ton of Left 4 Dead 2, and you could play in versus mode where you could be the enemy zombie guys,
Mhm.
and there was an enemy boss zombie called the Charger who had that charge ability. And I thought the reason that ability was so cool is because it's a commit. Once you press the button, you're a runaway train.
Mhm.
And watching Reinhardt's charge to their deaths is kind of hilarious, and it's what separates a great Rein from a shitty one.
You've explained that the Overwatch matchmaker process is designed to keep players at a 50% win rate. I think it's just a fascinating topic. Not to get too philosophical, but you can't have the up without the down. Hence the 50%.
Okay, I'm taking my BRB now. I'll be back. Okay, I'm back.
Percent. Can you speak to the complexity of like what makes a good matchmaker?
The matchmaking systems are some of the most complex design and engineering tasks you're ever going to tackle. And they're thankless. It's very hard too because I think most people, and they're not being disingenuous. Like if you ask a gamer, what do you want? They're like, I just want a fair match. Like just make it even.
Uh-huh.
And the reality, what they want is they want a match where they're slightly better than the other guy.
Yeah.
Like they want it to feel like it was close, but then win. And you can't architect that. Like there, it's a zero sum situation. So there's got to be winners and there's got to be losers. The other really core problem, and we would study this all the time when people would complain, you see a Reddit post and somebody would say, I had a 6-game losing streak. This is so fucked. It's the worst matchmaker ever.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Reddit.
Yeah, right. I love Reddit. But
Me
we would
too.
look up that person's account. I would do that all the time. I love looking up people's accounts and seeing what
Yeah.
would happen. It's like, yeah, he had the 6-game losing streak. He had an 8-game winning streak before that.
Yeah.
There was no post about how awesome is this. And the human psychology doesn't allow for that. The One of my hindsight regrets about Overwatch, and this is, I think we did the right thing in the moment. It's, like I wouldn't go back and redo it. But if I was making a hero shooter from scratch today, I would make it less team focused. And we put all of our eggs in you noticing if the team won or lost,
Mm-hmm.
and we downplayed your individual contribution as much as possible. There wasn't a scoreboard. We had a medal system, but the medal system was, in my opinion, it was not good because the losing team got medals and the winning team got medals.
Yeah.
And on the losing team, they would use that. They would weaponize it against their teammate. Well, I'm the top kills and all you guys are making us lose, and it's like, okay, you're the top kills by like 1 and you guys still lost.
Right.
So I would, if I was to redo it today, or for any aspiring hero shooter makers out there, I would actually downplay the team factor and try to put more focus on individual contribution,
Mm-hmm.
because that's just how people play. They're selfish, and I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just, it's that human nature they can't help.
And in terms of how they experience the game, in terms of how they derive joy from it, or how they see the challenge of the game, is individual. Even when you're on a team, you're still feeling
Yeah.
it's individual, fundamental individual experience. Let me, as a small aside before I forget, since we mentioned first person shooters so much, outside of Overwatch, what are some of the great shooters of all time that you've played?
It's
Quake
GoldenEye.
is the greatest.
Quake is GOAT.
Yeah, Quake is GOAT.
Mine is Doom.
There's a lot of
Yeah.
contenders
Quake
up
was good,
there.
don't
What
get me
have you
wrong,
logged the
but
most
Doom's
hours in
mine.
outside of the
Rust.
games? Okay. Can you, okay. A lot of folks have written to me that I need to play Rust, the video game. I have not. I've not even looked into it. Somebody on Reddit
I
said it
never
has
played
a
Rust
steep
either.
learning curve. I would like to give it a chance because you have to me spoken so highly of it. So can you explain Rust?
Yeah, Rust is an open world game. It's a procedural map, so it means that every time it's different. You're always on an
That one
island,
looked like a teddy
and it
bear?
resets every month. So
The
Is it
fourth
PvP?
one at the top?
it's all PvP.
I saw a
In
teddy
fact,
bear.
Rust is the most PvP thing in all of PvP.
I don't know what that
Ki-
means, but
Rust players know what that means.
everybody who plays Rust and loves it sounds to me like they're in a cult. So with all due respect, please don't write me letters.
They're too busy playing Rust. They're too busy checking on their
Right?
base, making sure it's
Mhm.
not rated to write you letters.
Okay.
Um, it takes place, it's basically, it's open world. You can do whatever you want. There's not really any directed gameplay to it, but at any time, any other player can kill you and take anything that's on you.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and then you build what Rust players called bases, and you
So it's
upgrade the
made to
base, and you
be
try to make the
toxic.
base as safe as possible to store your stuff, and then you can make explosives and blow up other people's walls to get into their base where they're keeping all their best stuff
And steal
and
their
take
shit.
all their shit
It like permanently?
permanently. Like, it
Oh,
would
I
be like
see.
PvPing in WoW. Imagine in World of Warcraft
Uh-huh.
if somebody could not only kill you, but take everything that's in your bank and make you level 1 the next time you log in.
Wow. That's very stressful.
The beauty of Rust and why it's so good is you can't have the high highs without the low lows.
Mhm.
And
Like real low lows.
real low lows,
Wow,
like
alright.
debilitating, like, am I ever gonna play this game lows? You know, like
Right.
you spend a week building the world's most perfect base and getting tons of loot, and then there's what's called online rating and offline rating. Online rating means that my enemy is, I can see that they're in their base right now, and I'm going to try to attack them while they're in their base.
Mhm.
Offlining, which is like all Rust players will say you're the scum of the earth if you offline someone. And then all
Mm.
Rust players also offline people all the time.
Ah,
Yeah, it's
yes.
gamer
So
etiquette.
Yes.
hypocritical.
Offline's when, like, hey, I think that my neighbor logged off for the night. You know, they just played 6 hours. I've been watching them, and now there's no activity in their base. So I'm gonna like
Almost like
blow up their
stream
walls and take up
sniping.
all their stuff when they're not here.
Mhm. Yeah. So Rust because real life is not hard enough is what it sounds like.
Yeah,
Just I
that'd be
want
a great
if
tag.
I want more stress in my life, I'll play Rust. Yeah, I can't wait.
Wow.
So, okay, so that's one that sounds like a unique experience and a great joy. So, Quake number 1, Rust and up there.
Call of Duty,
Call of Duty just
dude.
that's
You know,
well.
there's a lot of haters. Like Call of Duty 4 and Modern Warfare 2 were the pinnacle of Call of Duty, with Black
Mhm.
Ops being a very respectable, third. But you're never gonna get a better gun feel from a game than just study the visual effects, the animation, the modeling, the sounds. Every aspect of shooting a gun in Call of Duty is so masterfully done. And then the maps, like the flow of the multiplayer is just great. Like there's a map called Crash from Call of Duty 4 that Aaron Keller and Aaron's now the game director on Overwatch. We just sat and studied that map, or Terminal from Modern Warfare 2. Just studied the maps of just like this map design is off the hook. So Call of Duty is definitely up there.
So even though you were not thinking about it, Overwatch ended up being a gigantic success. So did you start thinking about in this framework of crawl, walk, run about the
Nope.
walk, the PvE
Yeah,
piece?
I was gonna say we're getting into
Yes.
the
So the
Overwatch
PvE
2 part.
piece was what Overwatch 2 was supposed to be.
Mhm.
And I don't know if people know this or not, but we started working on Overwatch 2.
A lot of people were hyped for that too. I went to the BlizzCon where they announced that, and yeah, I was actually kind of amazed with how many wanted a PvE Overwatch.
In 2015. So Overwatch 1 didn't ship until 2016. So before Overwatch, and it wasn't like work in earnest. It was like pitching the game. Um, I remember I spent a lot of time. It was myself, Chris Metzen, and Michael Chu, sort of brainstorming a framework for what like a campaign could look like. And we had this idea of like a cooperative PvE shooter. And we actually pitched it to the team before we launched because we were trying to put a bunch of runway in front of us that worked against us. And it's one of my biggest mistakes I've made as a creative leader in my career was Overwatch 2. There were
I actually quit Overwatch when Overwatch 2 came out. It wasn't because it was PvE though, or was supposed to be. And I guess, it's weird because then they just, like, went back. Now it's called Overwatch again, right? But, it was the way the loot was. Yeah, like the skins. Yeah, they totally fucked that up.
2 points of failure for me. The first was I had people on the game team who didn't like PvP or competitive shooters, and they really loved the Overwatch universe and wanted to play these characters and heroes, but they wanted to kinda do it on their own terms in, like, a PvE setting. So, even though Overwatch is this, like, runaway success and everybody's talking about it,
They'll never fucking learn, will they? Like, that's how they destroyed WoW, was by having that other side of people that wish WoW was something different. And now it is something different because they catered to those. And then the Overwatch, yeah, catering to a non PvP base, like, yeah, they'll just never learn.
they felt like they couldn't really engage with it. And so, like, people on the dev team are like, "Okay, thank God we, shipped that PvP thing.
Mhm.
When do we start work on this other thing?" So that came from a genuine place of excitement. And then the other point of pressure was from the executive team. And this was both the Blizzard and more so the Activision executive teams. And they started really putting the heat on, well, you said Overwatch 2 was gonna be out in 2019, and they're referring back to these slides that were just crazy dates. Like,
Mhm.
it was you never wanna put a PowerPoint deck in front of a corporate executive. Like, you might as well etch it in stone and come down from the mountain on it.
So you just threw some dates because the layout looked good.
Yeah, this is just all bullshit. This is just
Uh,
in the same way we put, like, the tablet, we just put
yeah.
Overwatch, like, put Tracer on a tablet and say we have a mobile strategy. So, the executives started getting really angry at us that Overwatch 2 was slipping, and so when Overwatch 1 took off, I remember very early we were in, like, May of 2016, and that year, the Olympics were gonna be in Rio, I think, and, I always like to pay respects to, like, when a big event is happening, I'm like, "Hey, we should do, like, an event for the Olympics." You can't call it the Olympics or else they sue you, so you just
I always
even though
did
you're
like the Overwatch
advertising for them
events.
to a bunch
They're
of
good.
kids who wanna play video games and not watch the Olympics, but we also had, like, these 2 developers, Mike Heiberg and Dave Adams, like, worked on this quirky like, they made soccer in Overwatch. We called it Lucio Ball. Like, they
Mhm.
made a
Mhm.
map and they made these mechanics. We're like, "Yeah, let's do an event called the Summer Games."
Mhm.
And we do a live patch that's the Summer Games. It's extremely successful. And then after that, we're like, "Yeah, let's do Halloween's coming up.
It's my
Let's do a
favorite.
Halloween event. How
Mhm.
cool will that be?" And our fans just loved these events, but there were 2 groups that were struggling with it. One was that group I told you on the dev team who was like, "Oh my god, you guys are overscoping the patches. Why are we doing this Halloween event? We should start work on Overwatch 2. We shouldn't be this focused on the live game." Which was fucking nuts.
Mhm.
Like, that was just crazy. There's this phrase of "catch the wave, ride the wave." Most games fall off the back of the wave. They don't catch the wave. No one plays it or plays it for 2 weeks. If you're lucky enough to have caught the wave,
Mhm.
ride it till the end.
Mhm.
And my instincts at that point were like, "Let's just keep how many more of these live events can we do?"
So, yeah, so now there's this wave and the live game and events, but the pressure on creating Overwatch 2 was building.
Yeah, we had a coalition on the team that was really wanted Overwatch 2 built instead of the live events, and then the executive pressure became monumental. And what would have been correct was to do more world events, like keep it going. But the major derail was Overwatch League. And we really like the weirdest part about Overwatch League is I believe in it. I helped pitch it along with some other people. We thought it was like the future of esports and doing regional based teams, ensuring minimum player salaries and player protections. Like there was a lot of very good about Overwatch League.
And there'd be teams associated with particular cities, and it'd be
Yes.
international, it'd be real competition. So the dream, the ambition was really huge there.
Yeah, the teams part of the dream was more of like regional based player protection, try to make esports more of a first class citizen because there were all these stories about like shady teams, screwing their players over. Where it got away from us was there was a lot of excitement about Overwatch League, like too much so, and then it got over marketed to the people buying the teams. Um, they went on this road show where they had a deck basically, and like you can put anything in a deck and sell anything. And they were pretty much selling the Brooklyn Bridge that Overwatch League was going to be more popular than the NFL.
Mhm.
And we got a bunch of billionaire
In the
investors
NFL? What
in
the
these
fuck?
teams. And when 2018 started, like for example, the day I got back, they said we signed this huge deal with Twitch for streaming of Overwatch League, like a media rights deal. And that means that here's all these commitments we made for Overwatch League of like in-game stuff that had to exist. Like a lot of it was integration with Twitch and camera control and that kind of stuff. The other part of it was a bunch of skins and uniforms for all the teams, which was not just getting the art in the game, but there was huge technical challenges to like how all that worked and was efficient and hit the right, memory footprint and all of that kind of stuff. And so all of your plans at that point kind of go out the window. Like you're not going to work on new world events. You're not really even focused on Overwatch 2. You're just kind of treading water.
Mhm.
There was a lot of talk of like, oh God, the deal, like the deal didn't go well and we've got to do make goods to make the deal better for them. I'm like, just give them some money back, Like if the deal isn't what people wanted, like putting it on us, the Overwatch team to like support this beast.
Yeah.
And it was a great idea that the wrong instincts and sort of I don't know how to phrase this in a way that's not damning, but there was too much focus on let's make lots of money really fast. And a lot of people got dragged into it. And while Overwatch League was great for Overwatch in terms of the players that it brought in, like, and the Overwatch League players, they were awesome. I love them. The Overwatch League staff at Blizzard, some of the nicest, most motivated, great creative
Mhm.
people. Like all of these organizations got built and they were all great, but it was a house of cards waiting to fall.
And it was became more about the money versus the quality of the experience of the different teams playing together and actually building this ecosystem of esports.
The financial reality kicked in where these teams now we didn't just have, executives at Activision and Blizzard who cared about the bottom line of Overwatch. We had all these people who basically invested in the game and then they started to express their opinions. Originally, the business model was going to be that they were going to do in-person events and there's going to be big ticket sales and then merch, and all of that. And I think really quickly everybody learned like yeah, we can't do in-game events when you have a London team and a Shanghai team, and like, how does this work? So that fell apart super quickly. The merch was good, but it wasn't going to be making NFL level money,
Hmm.
whatever
Right.
insanity anybody thought that was going to be. So everybody quickly defaulted back to, hey, didn't Overwatch make like $500 million just in the live game last year? What can we sell and what can you give us? That pressure comes onto the team. And then the pressure to ship Overwatch 2 and all care and love that we had for like the live game and the live let's just make events and new heroes and new maps. We're losing all these resources. Um, and it got to the point, you know, my exit at Blizzard, I believed in Overwatch too. I think we could have made a great I have a lot of hindsight of like how I would have designed that game differently with what I know now versus what ultimately we didn't ship. And I'm not there's Overwatch 2 is out now, but it's not the Overwatch 2 that we planned and announced.
So when you're referring
Right.
to Overwatch 2 in this conversation, you're referring to the PvE version,
The PvE version.
which, by the way, I would have loved to play. I'm one of
Yeah.
the people that were Overwatch is great, but the
I was willing to
PvP.
try it
But
out if it had
I would have
happened.
loved to play the PvE version.
I think everybody would have loved to have played it. And there's a
I think it's crazy because like they brought out Overwatch 2. Now they've dropped the 2 logo, so it's just Overwatch now. So what was the point? Like, it's literally just Overwatch again, you know? Like, oh god. What a fail, right?
misconception online that all I cared about was PvE and I didn't care about PvP. All of the Overwatch 2 PvP maps were something that I said to the team over and over. We have a PvP audience. If we get anything right, it has to be the PvP. We would be lucky to welcome these PvE players, but that's not guaranteed. So it was never a PvE only focus.
It's just almost expanding it to also the
Yeah.
E.
And what eventually broke me was it used to be like in 2016 and 2017, I felt very in control of the Overwatch team and the direction of the game as a game director, working with Ray Gresco as the production director. It felt like we were running Overwatch
Hmm.
and we were very, very successful and doing a good job. And I think the fans were happy. And then as we transitioned, you know, Overwatch League was the best intention. My parents always say the road to hell is paved with good intentions. That was the Overwatch League, and it ended up being an albatross. And then Overwatch 2 was the same thing. And what it boiled down for me, like what sort of ultimately broke me in my Blizzard career, was I got called in the CFO's office and he sits me down and he says, he gives me a date, which at the time was 2020 and was going to slip to 2021, but at the time it was 2020. And he said, Overwatch has to make in 2020. And then every year after that, it needs a recurring revenue. And then he says
We're
to
missing
me,
the most important
if it
info
doesn't
here.
do dollars, we're going to lay off 1,000 people, and that's going to be on you.
Well, they wouldn't beep it if it wasn't high.
And that was just the biggest fuck you moment I had in my career. It felt surreal to be
That's a crazy time frame because that would have been COVID too. So they're expecting a miracle of them during one of the toughest stages.
in that
Yeah.
condition. And as somebody who's worked on a lot of games, made a lot of games, you get in these meetings where they're like, Fortnite has 1,400 people working on it. If you just hire 1,400 people and make it free to play, we'll make that money, right? And that was I had believed I would never work anyplace but Blizzard. I loved it. It was a part of who I was.
No wonder Fortnite does
And I
so
felt
good.
I was a part of it.
1,400,
And I
jeez.
literally thought I would retire from the place. I never thought the day would come. And that was it. I was like, it's we're done here. Luckily for Blizzard, that CFO is no longer there.
I mean, Blizzard is one of the greatest companies in the history of Earth. They've created so many incredible video games. It's so
Used to
difficult
be.
to create so many hits, and they were done not by chasing money. They're done by small, incredible teams, the hodgepodge that you describe, taking big risks and falling in love with the thing they do, and then just chasing it, working extremely hard. And just because you figured out a way how to make a lot of money doesn't mean it's not at the core this this incredible creative journey that's incredibly difficult to pull off. And just because you got a bunch of really smart creative people who have somehow figured out how to pull it off multiple times in a row doesn't mean you can just treat it like a machine every single time. It's this
Mhm.
beautiful journey of a hodgepodge of weirdos working together, and weirdos have to run that thing. If you ever have a chance to create something special, you have to have weirdos at the helm. And at the degree to which you don't have weirdos at the helm, creative minds at the helm, and you're a business person at the helm, get
Just gonna say, in this day and age, I'm surprised no one takes insult to the word weirdos. Not an insulting word at all, but there's words close to it that people take insult
out of
to.
their way, right? You cannot have the meetings like you're describing. And I don't just speak about this particular company.
It is sad how it is, though, because you can see that there's still passion and, these people still care about the game, but you got the other side that feels the need to make as much money as they possibly can. World of Warcraft's a prime example. It gets milked to fucking death. Yeah, it's part of what's killed it. And it's sad to see.
It's just the entire industry. I just there's so much joy to be had if we keep creating great games. And I just hope we get to see those great games.
I think there's a message to creative people out there and people who make stuff. We're generally we're so focused on the love of the craft that we get lost in it and we love doing it. Um, and we're not cutthroat and we don't have that kind of ambition. We have a different kind of ambition. But there's this whole world, especially as soon as you're lucky enough to have success, that are very cutthroat and very ambitious. And for whatever reason, we keep giving ourselves to them. And we need to stop giving ourselves. World of Warcraft, when we made it, there was no CFO at Blizzard. You don't need a CFO to make World of Warcraft. You need artists, engineers, designers, producers, and an audio team.
You don't need to bring in just because you're making a lot of money, it doesn't mean you need to now start adulting by bringing in a CFO. You can
Yeah.
figure it out.
And there are great finance guys. Like I've worked with finance guys who get it and get out of the way and respect and they're gamers and they sort of understand. But like I I wish developers would understand their own value more and stop handing the golden goose to people who don't deserve it.
How painful was it to say goodbye?
It broke me. I think after you've been at a place like Blizzard, which I love Blizzard. To this day, I have nothing but warm, fond memories. I mean, there's those moments where you're like, I wish that hadn't happened, but on the whole, that place is mecca for game development, and everything I have is due to Blizzard. They provided for me and my family, made me the person I am. So separating from Blizzard was one of the most painful things, and I was very sad when I resigned, and I didn't realize how broken I was until recently, like, the mourning, grieving I had gone through of, like, I think I'm a little fucked in the head for not being there how could I give that up? How could I not be there anymore? It was really, really painful, leaving.
Can we just speak to I don't know, I don't think we can give enough love to Blizzard. It's a legendary company. For me personally, for everybody, for millions of people, created some of the greatest games ever. Warcraft, StarCraft universe, Diablo,
I grew
WoW,
up with Blizzard
Overwatch.
games.
What made it such a legendary game company? Just looking back at the whole of it.
The start is Mike, Alan, and Frank. It was run by 3 gamers. They were all 3 of them programmers. They made the games before they just ran the company, so they knew what each of us as developers beneath them were going through, and they protected us. They shielded us from all of the nonsense, and even when they would align with a business person, they had a COO in the early days named Paul Sams, and Paul protected us. They found great people who got it. The company when I joined was like 95% developers and like 5% operations. It's when I left it was, 50-50, and that's like a 4,500 person company. That love of the games and the respect and good treatment for game developers really turned it into the place that it was. Just the commitment to excellence, the high quality bar, and then finding these passionate people like Chris Metzen or Sam Didier. They were like the visionaries of early Blizzard, Alan Adham, of just these worlds that we're still making and we're still playing in today. Um, it was infectious and it was inspirational. And you wore the Blizzard blue with an esprit de corps. Like you felt proud to be part of it and you felt like you had made it to be there. And everything you did wanting to respect and honor those who had come before you. I know it sounds almost cheesy saying it that way, but it really had that sense of reverence. Like you knew you were part of something special. You didn't take it for granted.
Yeah, that's the sense. Reading everything, that's the sense I got. Everybody that was a part of it, that truly, truly, truly honored that time. Just to take a small slice, what were some of the brain? So you mentioned Chris Metzen. You gave so much love to so many people on the team, but I got to ask about Chris Metzen, who I would, by the way, love to do a podcast with at some point. What were the brainstorming sessions with him like? It seems like those are pretty like awesome.
They were the best. Like you could walk into a room. Like, the way I would work with Chris is early on when I was more junior, it was just sort of getting creative direction from him. "Hey, Chris, I'm about to work on this zone called Westfall. What are your ideas? How could I capture them in gameplay? Well, that won't quite work. How about like this?" It was more like that. Later on, like, I still remember, the first discussion I ever had with Chris about Wrath of the Lich King. I went up to his office like, "Hey, we're finally doing it. We're doing the Northrend expansion. What excites you about Northrend?" And that's all you had to say. And he would draw a map and he'd start pulling up old like Warcraft 2 and Warcraft 1 manuals and showing you like pictures he and Sammy had drawn and like maps and he all of it. He would just go on for an hour and then I would sort of digest. I just listen taking constant notes. I'm photographing his whiteboards all the time. And then I go back and start to put those into design flow of like, okay, what's a zone? What's a dungeon? What could be cool? What should come first? What should come last? Lich King, for example, we wanted to try a very specific design to counter a problem we had in Burning Crusade, which is everybody entered through the Dark Portal through Hellfire Peninsula. All the server programmers hate you because everybody loads into the same
Right.
zone at the same
Yeah.
time. Lich King, we split them up for better player flow. Plus, it's more interesting. The more choice you have, Sid Meier says games are a series of interesting choices. So we give him two starting zones, but that was the flow with Chris. And so often we would just like, okay, in that first meeting, Chris had put a zone called Grizzly Hills on the board. Well, I don't know anything about Grizzly Hills.
Mhm.
Some
Hey,
of the best
Chris,
music comes from
talk about
Grizzly
Grizzly
Hills.
Hills. If you didn't interrupt him, he'd just go for an hour, and you have no idea how much of it, like, he had pre-thought about or had existed in previous lore, and how much of it he was just making up on the spot.
Mhm.
He's just that charismatic and captivating.
Creating these worlds and being able to
Yeah.
brainstorm through them and together. I mean, that is what you're doing. As a consumer of those worlds, you kind of take it for granted that they're incredible, but like you're crafting them. Like you're looking at a blank sheet of paper and then together coming up.
My job, as I saw it working with Chris, was I had to on World of Warcraft specifically working with Chris, is I was like the translator into gameplay of what Chris wanted, how to get it to play like how Chris wanted. So my favorite stories we're working on Burning Crusade, and we're in this meeting, and Chris is like he's the gentlest, sweetest guy, but because he carries himself with such confidence and everybody's in awe of him, the junior developers get kind of intimidated by him. So we're in this meeting and we're talking about Silver Moon City because we're introducing the Blood Elves. And Chris is like, in Silver Moon City, it's got the tallest fucking tower in all of Azeroth. I mean, it is the tallest thing. It's mind blowing, the awe of it. Only the Blood Elves could build it. Fast forward like 2 weeks later, I'm walking through the hall and I see a bunch of level designers and artists. They're all like crowded around the screen. And on the screen, they've dragged Blackrock Mountain and Karazhan and the Stormwind Cathedral. I'm like, what the fuck are you guys doing? And they're like, well, Chris said that the Silver Moon Tower had to be the tallest thing in World of Warcraft.
Mhm.
And so we're measuring how tall all of these other things are so we can make the tower taller. And I'm like, guys, Chris doesn't know how tall the
Right?
burning steps, and the cathedral and Stormwind
Yeah.
is. What Chris means is just make the tower really fucking tall. You
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
need to measure it. And they're like, oh, okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
Like, are you willing to take the heat I'm like, I'm willing to take the heat on this one, guys.
Yeah. It's just a feeling. It's a vibe.
It's a vibe.
Yeah. And I also just personally have to give all the love in the world for the current Diablo 4 team because I've spent most recently out of the Blizzard games, spent a huge amount of time in Diablo, and they've created some, and it's not just the loot. All right, it's the whole experience, the art, everything together, and the season they've created a really wonderful world. So I could feel how much effort goes into that.
They're crushing it. And I think Diablo 4 in like modern times is one of the best worlds that have built. And they understand Diablo players.
Mhm.
Like that community is so hard and so demanding. And that team is amazing.
Yeah, there's a lot of richness. It's like it's really. I mean, I don't know how often you get that, but it's really the perfect Diablo game. They've really like evolved a lot, grew a
You
lot.
wanna know
So
something
there's this
funny?
whole.
Is that every Blizzard game has their dedicated players. How I know this is because I've streamed a lot of different Blizzard games. When I stream WoW, I get those same WoW viewers. When I stream Diablo, I'll get viewers that I haven't seen in like fucking 5, 6 years because that's when I streamed D3 back in the day. And then same with Overwatch, I'll see some of the names. Like, yeah, it's like every game. Every game has their players. Like, I'm saying viewers because I'm given the stream example, but every game has their, like, live or die players, you know? Yeah. Like, there's a few of us that play all of them, but there's definitely a lot of players that are only Diablo, only WoW, only Overwatch, only StarCraft, you know. And, I'm pretty sure it's still a rip on Heroes of the Storm, right? I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Used to love that game.
Whole mathematical component of just so many numbers everywhere, and it's all balanced really masterfully.
And
And then,
Hearthstone, I
of
guess.
course, you have to come up with new content with the seasons, and they figure out ways to do that. So, and a crazy pace,
Yeah.
and still make it super fun.
They're a great live team. Yeah.
And for me personally, like I said, the couch co-op experience has been really like that aspect of it is really great. Just all of it is one of the greatest games in recent history. One of the things I wanted to mention, because such is a powerful speech, is sort of instead of doing some kind of corporate goodbye as you were leaving Blizzard, you allegedly shared with your team a video of David Bowie giving advice. And people should go watch this clip. But if I may read it, Bowie says, "Never play to the gallery. Always remember that the reason that you initially started working was that there was something inside yourself that you felt that if you could manifest in some way, you would understand more about yourself and how you coexist with the rest of society. I think it's terribly dangerous for an artist to fulfill other people's expectations.
Mm-hmm.
I think they generally produce their worst work when they do that. And the other thing I would say is that if you feel safe in the area that you're working in, you're not working in the right area. Always go a little further into the water
Right?
than you feel you're
Don't get
capable
too
of being
comfortable.
in. Go a little bit out of your depth. And when you don't feel that your feet are quite touching the bottom, you're just about in the right place to do something exciting." Speaking of which,
Good quote.
you are just about in a place to do something exciting after leaving Blizzard. Uh, you told me that you tried to take some time off. How did that work out for you?
Not so well. My wife, who is wonderful, told me I needed to take at least a year off and just, I've been going really hard. I'd gone 19 years, barely taken vacation. Um, and I let Blizzard consume me. And, I was crushed by leaving because I loved the place. And I didn't know what to do with myself. I was pulling weeds in the backyard.
Literally gardening.
Yeah, well, she won't let me garden in the garden because that's hers, but I'm
Yeah,
allowed to pull the weeds.
right.
So I got very good at that. I was very proficient. And then of all things, I cracked out on Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, and I unlocked Dark Matter Ultra, which I'd never that's like a crazy achievement to do in that game.
Hmm.
So I did that, and then I couldn't help it. Like, it's how I'm programmed. It was like at this point, it's late spring, early summer, and I'm just sitting in the backyard. And I just started writing with Notepad about here's a game I want to make. And it was so terrifying because for 19 years, I had worked with the greatest developers, I thought, in the industry. And there'd be moments where it's like, okay, I want to do like a game world map. Like, hey, Aaron, you're amazing at making game world maps. Like, you do that. And, uh, I like, I need some story hooks. Hey, Chris, what do you think would be
Hmm.
cool here? Like, it's so collaborative and I was surrounded by the best of the best. And there I was by myself. And I was out there again, and I loved it. It brought all the joy of game making. I thought games were no longer fun to make because it was only about business and somebody's asking me for unreasonable amounts of money and unreasonable amounts of time. and I had forgotten the pure joy of the craft of making games, and I was going on I was watching YouTube videos to learn
I was
Unreal.
I was gonna say there's a lot of people, a lot of like nobodies making games now, right? So he probably saw that and he was like, "Damn, I miss when that was, that was the way." Yeah. And I think he's about to more or less say that since he started talking about YouTube.
And Adobe Illustrator and all these things to, like, help me make games, whatever, Blender. Um, I had no right to be doing any of that, and it just felt so amazing to do it, and I sort of realized I came to 2 realizations. One, I never wanna work for someone else again. I never wanna create something and then have somebody take my baby away from me.
Mhm.
That's really hard when that happens, and it's sorta happened a few times now, where you have to just let something go that you created, and I wanted it all to be focused on the craft of making games, the art, programming, design, audio. Like, just not about the bullshit of the games industry. I'm not interested in the games industry. I'm not interested in the business of games, not interested in the entertainment industry. It's just game jamming, making stuff that we're gonna play together. And around that time, I call him my development soulmate. There's a programmer named Tim Ford.
Mhm.
He reached out and he's like, "Hey, man," he was, like, associate tech director on Overwatch at the time. He's like, "Yeah, I don't think I can do this anymore. It's just not like it was." I just handed in my notice, and I'm like, "Whoa," "Well, if you wanna do something together, like, fuck it, let's take a stab and, just see what happens." And Tim came over to my house and well, before that, he says, "My last day's on Friday,
Mhm.
and, my exit interview's at, like, 1 o'clock. I'm gonna be over to your house at, like, 2 o'clock that afternoon." And I'm like,
Or
"Well,
right after.
don't you think you should take some time off, Tim, before whatever's next for you? Take a month off, Meg, his wife, will appreciate it, just
Mhm.
go pull weeds in the garden for a
Yeah.
while." And he's like, "I'm a programmer. All I'm gonna do is program for a month. If I take a month off, I might as well start programming our game,"
Mhm.
Yeah.
which
Brilliant.
it was so awesome when he said that.
Brilliant.
He came over and I pitched him this idea for a game and I pitched him, "Let's start a company." And, that was it. Like, that was the birth of us making a studio.
Now, meanwhile, as far as the outside world is concerned, you've disappeared off the face of the earth, but you were actually working on a game.
Yeah. I I needed to be away from the world. I needed to not have I wanted to not get attention from anyone. I needed to not read my name on Reddit or, any internet site. I wanted to not come up let some other Jeff Kaplan bubble the
Hmm.
top of the Google, search list.
You know our man, Dino Flask is gonna be all over this conversation, right?
Oh god, well, yeah, this one's gonna set him back, some time, but yeah,
You know what to do.
I needed for none of that to happen. I just needed to be able to, like, mourn the loss of Blizzard
Mhm.
and create on my own.
Yeah, focus
So it
on
was
your game.
great, and at that time, like, as soon as it was announced that I was leaving Blizzard, I had, like, 60 people reach out to me. This was April of 2021, and investment money was nuts, both, like, the VC money and, the strategic money was crazy, like, especially the Chinese companies, because apparently they weren't getting, publishing numbers in China or something. The whole economy was crazy, and so just everybody was trying to throw money at me, which was a very good position to sort of be at to start a
Right.
company. So what Tim and I did was say, we're not doing this for money, but here's the game we want to make. And it's going to take this many developers, and we think it's going to take this length of time. And that means the budget is this. And we need for any of these people who want to invest in us, we got to hit that number. But after that, we're not going to go for more money. It's not an auction to raise as high as we can go. We're going to optimize for control.
I don't know if this is something that you can talk about, but I got a chance to see the game for a few hours, and I have to say it's incredible, Jeff. Like, it's incredible. But almost immediately fell in love with the world and everything I saw. See, I'm tempted to say some of the things I saw, but it's just an incredible game. So how much can you talk about it? Do you know what it's going to be called? Can you talk about that? Do you know about the company? Are you allowed to say any of that?
Sure. The most unconventional way to talk about this stuff for the first time. So, our company name is Kintsugi, which most people will struggle to pronounce.
Yeah, I
Nice.
butcher
And the
words all the
company name
time.
has a deep meaning to me, which I'm happy to explain later if you're interested. And the game name that we're working on, it's called The Legend of California. And it's an open world game. People are going to call it a survival crafting game. People like to compartmentalize these. I think it's an action game. It's a game that takes place on a mythical island of California
Hmm. In the 1800s,
in the gold rush. If you're
in Gold
trying to
Rush.
if you're trying to nail the most important time in California history, it's got to be that gold rush.
So it's this beautiful, almost ultra realistic version of California, but it's in an alternate history, alternate version of California, where it's an
Yes,
island, almost like a Atlantis type of ethereal island, but still very realistic to what the California terrain is and that
correct.
time period. So it's this weird, like, amalgamation of this ultra realistic and the surreal.
The theme of the game is very weird. We're not trying to make a historical game. There's no historical accuracy to this. In fact, the island, when first discovered, is uninhabited. That's already not true, as we know. There were lots of people in California. It's an island, which we know is not true. Um, we want it to feel authentic to that time period because we think that time period is cool.
Hmm.
Prospectors, cowboys, like it's a really fun thing for us to explore all of those themes. People in mines, we want to build mines and we just want to create a world that you can live in. I love creating worlds. Everything that I've worked on before, from World of Warcraft to Overwatch, it's always been how do you create this place for players to escape to? So,
So it's an online multiplayer game. I should say the experience of it is just gorgeous. And then the music is
It
wonderful.
looks good.
I'm glad you like it.
One of my favorite things is just going down to the mine and digging. I mean, that's done extremely well. And as you described, the whole world is voxels. So it's generated. Can you explain how that works?
Yeah, as a world, we handcrafted the world. So like the shape of California is always the familiar shape of California, except it's an island. So, there's no Nevada on the eastern side. We handcrafted all of that. It looks gorgeous, and places like Yosemite are where you would expect Yosemite to be, and so all of those familiar landmarks are there. But then we have like dozens of points of interest and those move around the map and depending on the map seed. And the map is also tiered in terms of difficulty. We don't really have levels in this game. We have tiers, and there's only 4 tiers right now. Maybe that will change. But the way that the map tiers itself each time changes with every world seed. So not only any server that you join will have a different seed in terms of how the tiers play out. So Mojave might be the easiest newbie area on your server, but on my server it's end game tier 4 area.
Mhm.
But all of our notable points of interest also move around. So we have a really amazing point of interest that we call Dread Rock that's inspired by Alcatraz. And like, sure, sometimes it's in San Francisco, but sometimes it can be sitting in the middle of the
That
Mojave Desert
Mhm.
also.
It
that got me interested because I love Alcatraz stuff. Yeah, I have done so much research on Alcatraz, and I've watched the Alcatraz TV show, I've seen all the movies, and the only thing I haven't done is gone. It's in the future, it's in the plans, is to actually go to the Alcatraz, but yeah, so I love that that was the inspiration here. Yeah, very nice.
integrates it into the environment to where it makes sense to
Yeah.
be in that environment. And like you said, so much of what makes a world is sound and lighting. And
Yes.
that's definitely a thing that I've noticed. I mean, it's probably the most beautiful sunset and sunrise I've seen in a game.
Mhm.
We have a great lighting artist who is an amazing guy named Mike Mara, and some of the inspiration for the game, like there's a lot of inspirations for this game, but there's a painter named Albert Beardstadt who I discovered while researching California, and he painted these just epic landscape pieces of, Yosemite and a lot of other of the gorgeous parts
Yeah,
of.
we're looking at one photo of his.
Yeah, it's just amazing, and these paintings were huge too. I'd love to see one in person.
And so you see a painting like that, and you're saying, we want to create that world.
Yeah. I mean, when I see that painting, this is what video games brings to the table. So every
Mhm.
art form that evolves after another gets to incorporate previous art forms.
Hmm.
Movies got to take sound and, fine art. We get to take everything, including movies. So, it's Katamari Damacy, the art form. But like I see a Beardstadt painting and I wanna walk around that world. I wanna see what's around the corner. And our lighting artist, Mike, sees these pictures and he's like, "Okay, yeah, hold my beer. Like, I'll make it look like that."
Right.
And we are all blown away by the like how much impact just the lighting. And I'm not an artist, so I don't think about things like the color theory, the lights, the clouds, what all of that's bringing to this. I just know I want to live in that world, and these are the types of worlds that we want to make.
So what do you want the tone of the game to be, the feeling of the game?
This is really different. It's been hard for people when people were talking to us about they know me and Tim and they're, "Oh, the Blizzard guys, the Overwatch guys, you're making like a bright aspirational future team-based hero shooter, right?" And I'm like, "Why would I want to do that?" I felt like first of all, respects to Blizzard, and I don't want to try to crib Blizzard and make a pseudo Blizzard game. This is I want to make a Kensugiyama game. You know, Me and Tim and this crack team, we're only 34 people. Um, we want to define what a Kensugiyama game is. And this world seemed so inspiring to us. The setting is really interesting. Yeah, I think California can be a game world. I think we can make it beautiful and interesting. We don't have to follow history or geography. We can kind of do a spin where, it feels authentic. We can have guns that feel like they're kind of from that time period, but we're not spaceships and aliens and steampunk.
Hmm.
That's what we would have done at Blizzard. We're going to be a little different here. So the tone of this game, Metzen would describe Blizzard as the hero factory. We make, and what he means by that is not only are we making heroes, but we make the players into heroes. This game is gonna have an edgier tone. You're gonna enter this world, it's gonna feel lonelier, it's gonna feel mysterious, larger than you. You're gonna feel small until you earn the right to feel big. It's gonna feel really dangerous. You're gonna wanna see what's over that next hill, but if the sun is setting, like get to shelter. Can't
Mm.
wait to get back to my ranch and put my cozy fireplace on and wait till morning, you know. We want more of that vibe.
It's more solitary, almost scary, but beautiful.
Yeah.
That mix, that tension. I'd hate to ask this question, but given our previous discussion about a timeline slide, but what do you think a timeline looks like? When do you think it's possible for somebody in the world to be able to play this game?
So this is the beauty of me and Tim kind of getting to run the show and why we're excited about it. We can kind of do whatever we want within reason.
Yeah.
Um, so we're just gonna kind of quietly put it up.
Right, within reason, exactly, because the worst part of actually telling us the name of the game and showing us footage is that you're gonna have players, well, future players, on your ass. Yeah, yeah. Never tell the public until you're close.
On Steam and see what happens. You know,
Nice.
no like big corporate marketing group would ever think to do that in a million years
Mhm.
without like some, $10 million announce or whatever.
They pretty much instantly sell it for me by putting it on Steam. The only like, if I wasn't the WoW player I am, I would pretty much never touch Battle.net. Well, I guess I still play Diablo as well, but yeah, yeah, I hate that there's this, I'd rather everything be on one site. That's Steam for me, aside from like World of Warcraft and Diablo. So yeah, easy win. Just just off of you putting it on Steam. Yeah.
We'll just kind of put it on Steam and be cool if people wish listed it. There's my plug. And then I think we are shooting to have some sort of public-ish alpha in March. And then our plan is something I'm really excited about because I've
It
never gotten to
it
do this
is
before.
March. What you mean
We want to
next
put
year?
the game in early access. Some people hate early access and won't touch it, and I understand it. And then some people are like, I want to be in on the ground floor and see the thing from day one and watch it evolve. So
He
we'll put it
doesn't
into early
actually
access
he doesn't actually mean this month, right? Like, it's literally the 19th. He's gotta mean next year.
and we'll just run that until who knows,
Is it scary to you to have a sort of game with some rough edges out there in the wild where people are interacting with it through the
Yeah.
alpha, through the beta?
Yes, and this game has more rough edges, probably like the most rough edges we would have at Blizzard is like showing at BlizzCon, which was heavily polished and controlled. This is going to be more.
Actually, yeah, he could mean this month because this interview was probably done in February. Let's be real, 5-hour interview. I'm an editor. That would take a bit to edit, and yeah, and yeah. We'll do a quick check before I end.
you know, like in development than anything else I've ever worked on. But
I
that's
love it.
part of the excitement too. It's kind of like this is how the sausage gets made. I mean, you're gonna see it front row.
I'm going to try to get myself into the alpha somehow.
Me
Anybody
too.
who is listening to this, I highly recommend this game. You will not be disappointed. The world itself is just beautiful. So whoever's behind it, you and Tim and the team, is just doing an incredible job. And thank you for putting out rough versions of it, so we get to
Yeah, of
not wait
course.
forever for the perfect thing. And because you feel like you're a part of it. If you get the imperfect thing, I'm one of the people who like the imperfect. We get to see the rough versions develop, and
Yeah,
get to be a part of
the growth
it
of it.
developing. I saw the logo as a mountain. Can you explain the meaning behind the name?
So, kintsugi is a Japanese craft of repairing broken pottery. So, there's a lot of philosophy that goes into it as well. And I want to do a good job of explaining it, but basically, like, you take a broken piece of pottery and then they would use golden joinery,
Mhm.
like golden lacquer to put the piece back together. And the thought was rather than hiding the scars, you make them more beautiful. And the philosophical parts that sort of appeal to me with that is there's a lot of me and Tim in that of we're so appreciative for our time at Blizzard, but we didn't come away unscarred. And there's also a philosophy in Kintsugi that nothing's ever perfect, and the pursuit of perfection is actually a mistake, and that there's beauty in imperfection. And so I relate that to myself personally. That's how I feel in an aspirational way. I'm not saying I've achieved it, but in an aspirational way, I want to be that way. And I think it's also an analogy for the making of games. Like it's a making of games is a constant uh, pursuit of imperfection. A game is never going to be perfect.
Mhm.
Just ask the players; they're very vocal about it, and seeing the beauty in the imperfections. Um, and the strength in something that's been broken that can be stronger.
You had a heck of a difficult couple years here. And so in some sense it represents that beauty in imperfection. So everybody listening to this, I hope you do have it out on
Hey,
Steam.
GPC.
Go check out Legend of California. Truly a beautiful world. I'm so glad you are actually creating this low key, quietly creating this beautiful, incredible world. Uh Ridiculous question, but can we talk about some of the greatest games of all time?
Yes.
What I mean, I know this is a bit of a nerding out kind of thing, and outside of the games you've been part of creating, I think Blizzard has created some of the greatest games of all time. Outside of those, what do you think are in the list?
So there's one that's the best. It's Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. And then there's
Mhm.
this list of greatest games, Zork, Ultima,
So
uh,
Breath of the Wild is the
the
best, right?
greatest game ever made.
What makes it the
It
greatest
is a
game
really
ever
good
made for you?
game.
Every
Long.
aspect is so thoughtful, so well designed. The art matches the design and the tech, and even integrating with the Switch in the way it does. How do you keep making Zelda better? How can Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time exist and somebody make an even
I think it is extremely impressive, and you know a game is good when you ask someone greatest game of all time and they name off a 2016 game. I think that's when Breath of the Wild came out. But yeah, usually best game of all time, they go all the way back to the 90s. So that makes Breath of the Wild very very good in most people's eyes if someone is naming it as one of the best games in comparison to like games from back in the day.
better Zelda
Mhm.
game? The way you can chop down a
But you
tree and
gotta
float
also
in a
remember
river,
there's
and
been like
like
so many Zelda
the
games
world is
prior
a
to Breath of the
toy
Wild
and
too.
everything works as you wished and hoped it would
Mhm.
work. And there's a narrative aspect to it, and there's really fun combat and action and itemization. There's so many things that that game gets right that other games are lucky if they get one of those things right and are become best in their genre just for getting that one thing right. And Breath of the Wild does them all right and the best.
There's a certain kind of lightness to the way the world feels, the openness of the world feels. It's unlike any other game, right? It's uniquely that company, uniquely that.
Yeah. No
They
one
just
else.
nobody else creates that. You're right. Under the pressure of having created a bunch of Zeldas, that are like really great games to be able to deliver once again.
Nintendo is like the mecca, like they're the best, that's all there is to it.
Do you understand how that
You know
company
why?
works?
Because they don't let anyone get in the way. Yeah, that's why Nintendo is so by themselves, more or less, and not really connected to anything else, like Steam and all that. Yeah, they don't let anything get in their way.
But
No,
they're not
I don't at all.
like, because, I mean, they've been around for a long time and still to be able to deliver.
I kind of rationally or irrationally just worship. It's just sort of, if it's from Nintendo, it's gonna be great.
Mhm.
And even if my first impression is like, "Wow, they're doing what weird thing with the controller this time?" And then you get your hands on it and you're like, "God." I would My son and I, we both played, Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild, and he makes games also, and we had this moment where he's like, "I'm so sad after I played it," and he's like, "I know I'll never make anything like this," and it's that weird, like, you honor it so much and think it's so great. Red Dead was like that for me. Red Dead Redemption 2 is, that's a game I put on a shrine. Not just how
I
brilliant the
knew
game itself.
I knew he had to have liked Red Dead Redemption because I see Red Dead Redemption in his game that he's creating. Yeah, it was like the first thing that came to mind.
Is, but as a game
So
maker,
I knew it
as
had
a
to have
craftsperson who
some
makes games,
inspiration.
how the hell do you make that? Like, only Rockstar, with all the years of making those types of games, no one else can come in entry level
Mhm.
and compete with that. Um, so that's
Purely
insane.
single player, narrative driven. So you also respect that kind of, like, pure.
Yeah. I don't give anyone a pass. I feel like a lot of gamers and game developers, like, if it has writing, they're like, the story's so good. I'm like, actually, very few games have great story, but Red Dead has a great story. It's got great character development. It's got a good plot, and the dialogue is like, it's like Tarantino
Mhm.
level high quality dialogue. So Red Dead's up there. I have my other games that make the list for me, and these are, both these games are, I would never tell you to play them. EverQuest and Rust are two of the most defining games to me and my career and my life. And Rust, I would never recommend somebody go and play it. Rust will come calling to you if you are up to play it.
It is a cult. It's 100% a cult. It will
That's
when you're ready, it will come
It will
down.
come down, it
The
will let
sky
you
will part.
know.
Okay.
In Rust, you are considered a complete noob that doesn't know what he's doing if you don't have 1,000 hours. Even 1,000 hours,
1,000
people would
hours.
be like, "Oh, you only have 1,000 hours in
Yeah.
that game?"
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, but eh
I was just gonna make a similar comment because like most of my games that I put decent time in have at least 1,000. Yeah, 1,000 doesn't take that much. Not if you love the game.
and a lot of inspiration for me in the game I'm working on now. My game is not like Rust in that it's not a PvP centric game, but, it will have PvP.
What aspect of Rust, do you draw inspiration from? Just
I love the resetting world. It's a
Mhm.
great game mechanic, and it's one that I want to evolve and work upon. Um,
How often is the world reset? And do you think in Legend, of California?
I don't know yet, probably every month. We want it to be fast enough that you're not too attached, but we wanna make it rewarding. Like, the trick is coming up with not, "Why am I upset that the world resets?" but, "Why am I excited that the world
Mm.
Hmm.
resets?" And we know
I don't know if I
players can
like
get
that
very angry
aspect.
about resetting worlds, but anybody who's played 5,000 hours of Rust, like some of us, the resetting world is the magic. It's I can't wait for the next reset because the adventure starts all over again. And if you wanna play the first time with me, like, if we wanna play World of Warcraft and I'm level 80 and you're level 1, there's no meaningful experience we can have together. But in Rust, we just wait for a reset and we're both naked on the beach, from minute 1.
What about the experience of Rust where you can have everything taken away from you. That
Right?
part, that's
We're not
that
doing that.
great, great,
Yeah.
because that feels awfully stressful.
See, I just lost the entire Rust audience when I said we're not doing that
Um,
because if you're a Rust player, you're not thinking you're going to lose everything you have. You're thinking I'm going to take everything
Yeah.
somebody else has.
see, my
But
perception of the Rust audience is there's like 3 people, they're in a castle somewhere. It's a very exclusive group.
they are highly skilled, highly passionate, highly knowledgeable. But yeah, it's an inspiration for me. That and EverQuest were defined, and the amount of hours I've logged in both those games are insane.
What do you think has more hours from Jeff Kaplan, EverQuest or Rust?
Well, you said I was 6K on EQ, so that puts me. I'm at 5K in Rust.
And also in that collection is
I
Zork.
really I really thought Rust would win in that one. Yeah, the way he talks about it, it is really damn close. But yeah, I definitely thought he would have had more in Rust.
Zork was, I mean, Zork, it just brings me back to that old IBM PC with my mom and my brother trying to figure out, like how to keep the lights on or else the grew's going to eat us.
Yeah, so certain games just capture your heart and they stay with you forever. What do you think is the future of video games? So there's a lot of conversations about AI
Right, I
helping
was gonna say
expand
that.
maybe the storytelling aspects, the world creation aspects, becoming a tool that people can use more so, maybe creating more believable NPCs, that kind of thing. Um, but also there's as we've talked about, the video game industry is changing and evolving and trying to figure out whether it's the indie game makers that will have more power, or these larger game makers will have more power. So, what do you think the future of games looks like?
I think with AI in mind in particular, I think the current state of AI trying to integrate it into development is mostly a hot mess.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But um, I do think that, games are a technology driven art form. And somebody much smarter than me once described it, and I'm paraphrasing, making a game is like making a movie if you had to invent the camera every time, because you're kind of inventing the technology of your specific game. And I think AI can play a role in that, and we'd be silly not to look at it as an option. The problem with AI right now is it's overconfident in what it tries to deliver. Like it fooled around, obviously, like everybody. Like you mess around with, ChatGPT and Gemini, and
I
you
was
fool
just
around
talking
with
about
some of
that
the art
earlier.
generation, and it's fun for non-artists to fool around on Mid Journey. But it's mostly weird and shitty, and even like when trying to
I think it'll be bad for a while because we've already, and my apologies, Jeff, on the pause. I could have picked a way better pause. So my apologies. But AI is just everyone stealing. Yeah. AI is just everyone copying every game, and how many games we got there, like Survivor, or fuck, what is it called? You guys know what I was referring to. Vampire Survivors. And yeah, yeah, it's just a copy at the moment. I think it'll be a while before people get creative with AI.
have AI answer for me, like I don't normally make UI in a game. And so I'm trying to figure out like UMG and the Unreal Engine. And I'm asking ChatGPT to how to fix like a simple problem. Like how do I make the chat rap? And it like overconfidently gives me the wrong answer. And it's like right 1 in 10 times. So its hit rate has to be a lot better. I think there's a lot of moral concerns around AI when it comes to creative pursuits as well. Like, no one's creative work should ever be used by AI without their permission.
Hmm.
Voice actors
Mhm.
and artists. it can't be lifting from them without their permission. That's just immoral. It's no different than just sort of stealing. Um,
Give it time. Eventually, they will start putting in some laws involving AI. Because, yeah, uh, right now you can do whatever you want with AI. If you wanted to pretend to be a popular YouTuber and steal their shit, go for it. It's allowed. Yeah, if you wanted to rip a movie and claim it as your own, yeah, have fun. It's allowed. Like we just gotta wait for it to hit that right thing that a heavy amount of people disagree with. And then we'll start seeing some laws coming in. But until that moment arises, yeah, yeah.
so that's wrong. I think how I'm curious, like, especially as somebody who runs a small studio with 34 people, it's like, what are the points of tedium that maybe AI could help
Mhm.
out with that I don't want to do? And I'm not going to hire someone to do. So I had like a really dumb example. I'm making a bunch of images. I sized them all incorrectly because I'm dumb and I'm not an artist. And I did it all in Photoshop. And I have like 2,000 images that are the wrong size. I can have Chat GPT resize those and zip it in a file for me. And it literally takes it like a minute to do that.
Mhm.
I wasn't gonna hire an intern to do it. I was just gonna work an hour later or 2 hours later that night to do it. Like, it made my life easier. It didn't take a job. That seems okay. Um, as long as that ethical line stays in place. What I don't worry about is no matter how good AI gets, never gonna draw a picture like Arnold Sang. It's never gonna tell a story like Chris Metzen. That human spirit is irreplaceable.
Yeah, it's hard to put into words what is that magic that humans produce, but they do. Truly great creative minds, truly great creative teams. They create something special. It's hard to really articulate exactly what's missing with AI. What people call AI slop, because it creates really beautiful imagery and beautiful stories and very believable text, but it's not quite. It doesn't have that. I don't know what it is. The edge that's human. Maybe it's the imperfections.
Yeah, I think so. Like AI to me right now, currently, it's like a interesting fever dream.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
that's
I've never really liked it because, well, he kind of said it when he said perfections. Like, there are certain, there's times where AI, like, looks so fake, but then there's times where AI looks a way too fucking real and too fucking perfect. And, yeah, yeah. And perfect is boring. So, yeah, I think they need to kind of program AI to be less perfect. Yeah, because if it's less perfect, it's more real. Yeah.
at the point I'm at with it.
And a useful tool for the mundane tasks, like you said. But
Yeah.
do you think the small studios have a hope in the future of gaming?
Small studios are the future of gaming. The big studios basically acquire the small studios for new IP and ideas, and the small studios grow in. The really compelling, new, innovative ideas are going to come out of small studios.
What advice would you give to video game creators, small teams, if they want to create a truly
Right? Small studios, those people will leave those small studios to work for big studios. So, yeah, they are the future.
special game?
Well, they know how to do it. I mean, if they're doing it, they know how to do it. It's more to video game developers in general, own the craft, own our art form, stop giving it to these fucking corporate jackholes. You are the golden goose.
Yeah.
Keep your eggs.
Jeff, formerly from the Overwatch team, I have to say from the bottom of my heart, and I think I speak for millions of people, thank you for everything you've created in this world. Now that I've gotten a chance to see the new game, I can't tell you how excited I am to try it. Thank you for everything you've created. Thank you for everything you represent. Thank you for remaining and fighting for us as one of us. So, thank you, and thank you for talking today.
Thank you, Lex.
Thanks for listening to this conversation with Jeff Kaplan. To support this podcast, please check out our sponsors in the description, where you can also find links to contact me, ask questions, give feedback, and so on. And now, let me leave you with some words from Franz Kafka. Don't bend. Don't water it down. Don't try to make it logical. Don't edit your own soul according to the fashion. Rather, follow your most intense obsessions mercilessly. Thank you for listening, and hope to see you next time.
Okay. Well, that was pretty good. If we made it. I know to anyone still watching right now, you don't see the full stream time because my internet decided to do an update at 2 in the morning, which, normally I wouldn't have been on anyway. So normally, we wouldn't have even noticed. So it did drop for a bit. But it took us 8.5 hours to watch that 5 hour that 5 hour interview, which not surprising. I add a lot to my streams. I don't just sit and watch videos, so I knew it would extend a bit. But it is now almost 5 a.m. I am gonna go. So I hope you enjoyed. I thought it was great. There was some stuff that I knew and some stuff that I didn't. So very cool, very cool. And I think it's great to see Jeff, kind of back to his roots, like he had his time, his fun time at Blizzard, and then his not so fun time, and now he's he did that career. He's decently financially off, and he can just go back to his passion. He doesn't need to make games for money. He'll still make money, but I think that's the ultimate dream. You start with your passion, you work your ass off to do it, and then you eventually leave it to more or less retire. And for a lot of people, retire doesn't mean stop working. Retire means do things you love, go back to your roots and stuff like that. So, yeah. So, I think it was great. Yeah. Anyway, you guys are looking at a black screen now, so I am gonna go. I gotta go to sleep. I gotta work in the morning. So, so I hope you enjoyed. I will reschedule the stream that accidentally started up when we dropped for a few minutes. So I'm gonna do that before I go to bed. So you'll see, if you're on YouTube, you might see a new scheduled stream happen. But yeah, I'll be back tonight and we'll watch the future game show showcase. Bye guys. Have a good one.